All right, and welcome back to the Performance Injury Report. It is Monday, March 8th, International Women's Day. Shout out to all the women out there, women athletes, women out there working.
Just women,
Just
Shout out to women out there.
Shout out to women.
Queens.
I do have purple on. I don't know if it really looks purple in honor of women, but shout out to all the women out there doing amazing things.
Heck yeah.
I am joined, as always, by Dr. Mark Casimiro. What's going on, Mark? How are you?
Not much. Shout out to my wife, who's a woman, and she's awesome. Shout out to her. Shout out to your wife, who's a woman, Nick, and she's awesome.
That's right. Shout out to all the awesome women and all that they do.
Hell yeah.
Every day. All right, everybody who's out there, you know the routine. Or if you're joining us for the first time and you don't, we're going to go over some injuries today. But if you have any questions about one of your favorite players, somebody on your fantasy squad, just an injury you heard about, and you want to know what the rehab time is going to be like, make sure you put them in the comments below. If you just want to say hello, do that too. Let us know where you're watching from. We're going to jump right in, but we want to see what you think. So make sure to write some comments if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, if you're on where else are we live? YouTube. We're on YouTube as well. You can comment.
Yik Yak. Are we on Yik Yak? Is Yik Yak still a thing?
Yik Yak, the TikTok.
MySpace. Are we on MySpace? Is that still a thing?
I don't think that's still a thing. I'm not sure though. I think they might. They're probably going to bring it back. That's what they're doing with everything. They're bringing everything back for the nostalgia. All right. Let's jump right in. So this is the guy we've talked about. This might be the third week in a row.
No, man.
Gerard Pique, knee. So he played 2 games last week, and now he's got a MCL injury on top of the ACL injury, which he came back from, that he suffered back in November. And I know you've been critical of them for him coming back in the Champions League. Now they're saying around 3 weeks. I know we talked a little bit in the pre-show about his original injury, now this injury. So let's just hear it. Let's hear from your expert opinion. Did they mishandle this? What's going on here? What are your thoughts on this whole injury? Because he hasn't looked good since coming back. He keeps having to get pulled out of the game. Now he's injured himself yet again. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so he had quite a game on Wednesday. He scored a goal at the end of the game to win the game. So, goal at the 91st minute, won the game for his team, but then in the process injured his knee. So now they're saying that he has an MCL injury in his knee. He injured his ACL back in November, and I thought that he had an ACL reconstruction, but he actually declined to have the surgery in an attempt to try to come back earlier this year. So there is some stuff in the research and medical journals about athletes who tear an ACL and then, for one reason or the other, they don't get it repaired or reconstructed and they go back out. And some of them are able to cope. There's been some good examples of athletes who participate in a high level without an ACL. But as you can imagine, a vast majority of athletes don't do well, especially in a sport like soccer where there's a lot of change in direction. So he opted not to have the surgery. You asked the question whether I think that if they handled it properly. It's hard to say because you don't have all the information, but if the player refused to have the surgery and wanted to just try to rehab it on his own, I think that's fine. I still question why the first game back is in the Champions League in a primetime game, against an offensive attack that PSG has. And then now I'm questioning, we saw him limping at the end of the game before he got injured on Wednesday. He was limping towards the end of that game, got substituted, I think, in the 60th minute. 3 days later, he's playing again in the Copa del Rey clash they had last Wednesday. And now they're saying that he has an MCL injury. He's going to have to be out. The original report I read that said he's going to have to be out for 3 weeks. And then the report I read today said that they're actually holding off on any timetable. They're going to just wait and see week to week how he responds to treatment and how his knee feels, which is originally what they said for the ACL back in the fall, and then they kind of changed their tune, a couple weeks later and got him back in the lineup. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on in Barcelona right now. There's a lot of drama behind the scenes. I think this might be kind of a microcosm of that. I'm not sure if this is the best way to handle the player and the athlete. Barcelona's been actually playing. They played very poorly at the beginning of the year. Been playing better recently, and actually they're making a push to close the gap between them and the first place team, which is Atletico Madrid. So, and they have Champions League coming up again this week. So He's going to miss this week for Champions League. I personally think if he had an ACL injury in November, we know without an ACL, you're going to have more strain on other ligaments in the knee and also more tendency to develop arthritis and stuff like that in the knee. So now without an ACL, you have an MCL issue. You have an ACL injury issue. The MCL, we've talked about before, the MCL actually shares attachment to the meniscus. So a lot of times when you have an MCL injury, you can actually damage the meniscus or have an injury to the meniscus as well, right? So if he has an MCL injury, an ACL injury, and possibly a meniscus involvement, that's 3 major structures on the inner part of your knee, inside of your knee, that give you a lot of stability. I personally, and we have a big tournament coming up this summer, although he doesn't play international soccer anymore, so we don't have to worry about that. I just don't know what the end game is. I wonder if he's going to retire after this year and he's trying to get as many games under his belt as he can and just wants to try to push it out until he gets to the end of the season. With this type of injury, normally you're looking at, 4 weeks is the general guideline for an MCL injury before you can start, getting back on the field and participating. I wonder with him if they're going to take a little bit longer. I would say maybe 6 weeks makes more sense to me. And then that puts us in like mid-April. The season is ending pretty closely after that. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. I like to sit here and say this is what they should do, but if the last 4 months on how they manage this injury is any indication, tomorrow they could come out and say that he's going to play again. It's very, very weird, very awkward. I'm not sure what they're going to do. In my experience, if this was my athlete, I would say that's it. You're going to sit for the next at least 4 weeks, and then we'll see where you're at in 4 weeks. We'll get you on the field. We'll see how you're responding to what we want you to do and see how your body responds the next day after we put more load and more stress on it. I would tell that athlete, listen, you're gonna be out for the next 4 weeks minimum, and then we'll see where you're at. But this is one of those things again where a lot of information that we don't have comes into play. What's the athlete going to do for next year? Is he thinking this is going to be his last year? Is there pressure from him, his agent, the coaching staff to get him on the field? Is there pressure from higher up to get him on the field? And these are kind of all the things that go into making a decision on whether he's able to play again. I think it kind of proves our point, Nick, that he shouldn't have been in the lineup, 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was limping around there. He didn't look good. Looked kind of ginger. They kept putting him out there. Now he's injured again. And now your thought is, if we put him out another time, is he going to really have a catastrophic knee injury at that point and put himself at risk? I would say sit him down for the next 4 weeks and we'll go from there.
Let me ask you one question. So when you're going the non-surgical route from an ACL, besides speeding up the amount of time that you can come back in, is there any other are there any other benefits besides a shorter recovery time?
That's a great question, Nick. I would say I
didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Yeah, I would say that's the number one reason. That's the number one reason. So when you're looking at the length of time it takes to rehab that, that ligament is usually going to be, at its weakest point, like at that 2 to 3 month mark. So you're looking to get people back in that 5th or 6th month if you're a European soccer player, closer to 9 months if you play soccer or football in the States. So that's probably the main reason why you would forego surgery, is to try to have the knee, rehab it, get stronger, see if it can heal a little bit, and then the time frame in which to get back onto the field is a lot shorter. If you have surgery, you're going to be out for at least 4 or 5 months. So I think that's the big benefit of not having surgery, is that the time to get back might be a little bit sooner.
Thank you for that insight on that.
Yeah.
I really was curious. I wasn't sure, besides the length of time, if there's any other benefits, because you see most people going under the knife when it comes to an ACL injury. All right, switching sports, hitting the hardwoods. We've got March Madness starting up next week. Villanova point guard Collin Gillespie. I think I got that right.
I think so.
Close enough. MCL tear. It looks like he's going to miss the entire tournament. He was having quite the season. Villanova's still first in the Big East. I know they just lost to PC this weekend. Could be because they were without this guy. He's going to miss the tournament. But because of COVID last year, even though he's a senior, he actually still has 1 more year of eligibility. What do you think this MCL tear could do for this guy's career going forward, college, or maybe even at the next level?
Yeah, I think so. We've talked about one guy that's coming up after we talk about Mr. Collin here. we talked about before. We talked about basketball players and just the wear and tear on their knees as they go through their career. So he is having surgery in the next couple of days to repair that MCL tear. Remember, we talked about before, tears of those ligaments are graded grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So all of them technically are actual tearing of the fibers in that ligament. The higher the grade of a tear, the more tissue damage you're going to have. And you can also have a complete rupture of that ligament, which is a grade 3 tear. So I'm assuming he had a complete rupture of that ligament. You know, this is the difference between someone who has a grade 3 rupture, who needs to have surgery to get that fixed, versus someone who has like a grade 1 strain or a grade 1 tear, which they might be able to rehab it and just give their body some time to let it heal and come back on the field. I think the bigger question is, I think he'll have surgery. I think he'll be good to go for the summer. I think the bigger question is, like, you really, as a young basketball player, obviously you want to try to avoid, having surgeries, avoid knee issues when you're young in your career, because there is research that suggests that as you get older, after you've had a surgery in your knee, whether it's arthroscopic, whether it's ACL reconstruction, there can be more issues with arthritis as you get a little bit older. So that's something that, if we're looking at him in his, high 20s to low 30s, if he's been playing for a while, his career might be a little bit shorter because of something like this. I think, too, it's a big hit for Villanova, who, at the beginning maybe had, some high hopes of going far in the tournament, given the field, the rest of the field. But obviously, this is their best player. Looks like he's going to obviously miss the whole tournament. So a big blow for Villanova. And hopefully we'll have more information for some of those NCAA tournament teams coming up next week too, as we look at what's going on and where all the teams seed and stuff like that, as we get more information. So, I think hopefully he'll be good to go next summer. Then, like you said, he has a decision whether he wants to go pro or stay in the collegiate level for one more year.
Yeah, and we got the Big East tournament coming up this week too. So, it'll be exciting to watch. We'll have to pay attention to that. But yes, next Monday we'll definitely be talking about some of the NCAA men's basketball teams going into the tournament. So you can make sure when you fill out your bracket, you know as much as you possibly can about the injuries to some of the players on the teams that are going to make it. All right. Last night we had the NBA All-Star everything. We had the three-point contest, dunk contest, and the game. Usually they do that on 2 nights, but they did it all in one night last night. We had Celtics guard/forward Jaylen Brown. He's been dealing with some knee issues. I know he sat out a game last week, but he didn't miss that All-Star game, Mark, now did he? So what are your thoughts on Jaylen Brown playing in the game? I know we saw him match up against Jason Tatum. That was kind of fun to watch. Tatum tried to defend Brown. How do you feel about this guy missing time in the regular season, but making sure that he's rested up and playing in the All-Star game?
Yeah, so I have a lot of feelings about that. NBA All-Star game seems to be the only All-Star game in American sports where the athletes actually want to participate in. I don't think this is an indictment on the Celtics coaching staff or the GM or even Jaylen Brown. I just raised the question now, if he has to miss 2 games or a couple of days when he gets back, or this time that he should be resting and letting his knee kind of recover and heal and just take the time off, because they're going to hit the ground running again this in March after the All-Star game, then playoffs. So he's not going to have a chance to really rest and recover over these next 6 weeks now. So now would have been the perfect time to get off of it. Let that knee kind of heal up a little bit, just feel a little bit better. But then he played in the game, and I know it's an exhibition game, and they're not really trying hard on the defensive end, but you're still running up and down the court. You're still putting a lot of strain on that knee. So my question is, what's the long-term goal here? If we're trying to get to the playoffs and stay as healthy as we can for the playoffs and get there and make a push, why are we playing in this game? And I just think that that's just the culture in the NBA, that a lot of those guys, they want to play in that game. And we've seen it before with Kyrie Irving when he was a Celtic, and he came back and he didn't play again the rest of the year, or he played in the playoffs, but that didn't go very well. So hopefully it's not the same thing with Jaylen Brown, that he has an aggravation of that injury and then he has to miss more time and he's not able to participate in these next games over these next couple of weeks, which are going to be important for the Celtics in terms of seeding for the playoffs and stuff like that.
The one thing I will say about the NBA is it seems like they can get just about every star that they have to play in the game, where I know the other leagues don't have the star power. Yeah, it turned into almost like going to see the Harlem Globetrotters, where they're taking half court shots with 20 seconds left on the shot clock and hitting them. It's super entertaining. No defense is played. I feel like when I was a kid, I used to love watching the All-Star game because it was just like almost like watching a video game because like there's no rules. But yeah, I don't like the fact of a guy missing regular season games just so he can play in the All-Star game. But like I said, the NBA is the only ones that can get all their stars out there, and they seem like they enjoy doing it and they have a lot of fun, playing with each other, which they don't get a chance to do all that often. Maybe when the Olympics come around and whatnot. But it was good to see a couple Celtics out there in the All-Star game. But I'm with you where I don't love him, potentially risking some time on the court down the stretch when it matters for an exhibition game. But that sounds like, I'm turning into a grumpy old man. But
yeah. Slow down. This is a neighborhood.
I got one more thing for you. We didn't talk about this
wild card. I love it
in the pre-show, but I was thinking about it. So there's been a lot of talk this week that the Pats are really, I've heard two sentiments. One, the Pats are really focusing on Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, there's a situation out in San Fran. Some things would have to happen, but if he comes available, that could be one of their number one options going into next season. I've also heard that there's a good chance they bring Cam back. Let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo because of the injury implications. You don't have to go into a big spiel about it. Just kind of like I want him or no, I don't. If that is what they're going to do, they're going to go after Jimmy Garoppolo and bring him back here. Are you worried about his ability to stay on the field?
Yes.
Cool.
I think too. I think the more information that came out, he had that high ankle sprain, and then he had surgery on it, and then there was a couple other things that came to light with that high ankle sprain. So you wonder like what the long-term future is gonna hold for him. If he had like a ligament damage with that high ankle sprain, they had to do surgery. Is there going to be more cause for concern like long-term and how his foot and his ankle holds up? Is that going to put him more prone to have to, get re-injured or have to miss time? That's my question mark with him is what's truly going on with that foot and that ankle. He's had the ACL injury before. We know that. But I would like to know more information on what's going on with that foot and ankle because he had surgery with it last year and then nothing really seemed to work well for him. He didn't really ever look comfortable on it. So we have to maybe get more information with that. But that'd be my number one concern is what's the long-term health of that foot and ankle? But he can throw a little bit. He doesn't have the same shoulder history that Cam Newton has. So maybe that's just a check mark in that box.
Well, that was going to be my next question. If you only had to pick, one of the two, would you go Jimmy or Cam?
I'd go Jimmy only because of Cam Newton's history with that labral tear in that shoulder. We've seen it before. Like we talked about Chad Pennington before. He's a perfect example. Just after that surgery, just can't get the same. And then Peyton Manning, he had a different obviously injury with his neck and some nerve damage in his neck, and he couldn't get that strength in his shoulder. You just can't make certain throws at that point. So, half the field is off limits and half the playbook is off limits because you just don't have the same physical ability to make the throws that you need to make because structurally you just don't have what you need in the shoulder to do that, and it's a very hard surgery to come back from at this stage in Cam Newton's career. So I would say I'd be more comfortable with Jimmy G knowing that his shoulder health is a little bit better than what Cam Newton's health is. I
agree with you. I just want somebody who can move the ball downfield. Cam is a crazy athlete, but until he proves that he can actually throw the ball and not skip it in the grass when his feet aren't perfectly set, I just worry about it. It's a passing league, I do like an athletic quarterback to extend plays, but I don't know. You need to be able to move the ball downfield.
Yeah.
And that takes wide receivers and tight ends, which the Pats don't have a ton of either, but that's a whole nother episode.
I think too, like Cam Newton's shoulder strength, that's not going to get better. Like that is what it is. Like I know some people, some of the things you read, will tell you like, oh, COVID, it was a weird year. He missed time because of COVID. That shoulder strength is what it is. And I don't think that's going to get better. And you might see flashes of it where, hey, that was a pretty good throw. He looked pretty good. But I think the majority of the time he's going to be having a really hard time, especially if he doesn't have the ability to set his feet. he's not going to be able to make some of the throws that we're accustomed to him seeing because, his shoulder is what it is right now. And I don't think that's going to get any better. So I think that if you're hoping as a Patriot fan that they bring Cam Newton back and next year will be better because of a full offseason under his belt, I don't think that that's realistic. I think that his shoulder is what his shoulder is, and he's going to look the same when he's trying to throw the ball as he did this past year,
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was ready to re-sign Cam after the Seattle game where, he had a great game. He was moving the ball downfield. Edelman, looked like a beast. I mean, they didn't win the game, but, you saw flashes of what it could be. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I mean, he just couldn't, he couldn't matriculate the ball downfield. He had COVID and all that. And it was just, it was not a great situation. And I think people started to lose faith in him. And I know I did. I would be upset if that's who they settle on going into next year. I'd like to see somebody who can move the ball downfield and give them a chance.
Yep.
But we'll have to wait and see. You guys still got the draft coming up. Free agency is happening. So we'll see some players who start to move around. Well, Mark, that's all I have for you today. Remember, anybody out there, if you're watching, and even if you can't join us live, make sure to put your questions in the comments below, and we will make sure to get to them on next week. Happy International Women's Day out there to all the amazing women, the CEOs, the vice president. We have a lot of women in power doing awesome things. All the women athletes, PTs, everybody out there that's doing it. Happy International Women's Day. We hope you guys have a great day and that you're recognized for all that you do. Mark, thank you for joining us. Everybody out there, thank you for joining us. And make sure you join us next Monday at 1.
Peace, everyone.
Peace, everybody. Have a good week. Be happy, be healthy, stay safe.